Hello, and welcome to the next episode of the Live Your Spa Life show. Spa life is a lifestyle that accepts that accomplishment and harmony coexist. The Spa and Spa Life, the SPA, is for Seek Power Always, that power within you to do your bigger work in the world. I am so thrilled to have my special guest today, Maggie Cook. You are going to hear so much about her journey from being born in an orphanage to selling her company for multiple millions to her next movement that she's up to. It's going to be so great for you to lean in and listen to her journey and see how you can incorporate some of the principles that she's used to really succeed on many different levels of her life. So Maggie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So good to have you. You know, you have a beautiful birth name. I'd love for you to share that with everyone.
My birth name is Maria Magdalena de la Cruz Cook-Garcia.
Sounds so pretty. I love that so much. And I would love for you to share, because you immigrated from Mexico and you were born in an orphanage. Tell us a little bit about what that was like growing up there. You had lots of brothers and sisters. Tell us a little bit about your beginning and how you started there.
Well, it was an orphanage in the central mountains of Michoacan, which is close to Mexico City. And I grew up with 68 brothers and sisters. My parents or our caregivers adopted about 60 kids that came from the streets or abused environments. And then there was 8 of us who were brothers and sisters that lived there. And life was much more rougher, especially when I was growing up, when I was a little kid, because there were a lot more kids that came in. At some points, we had over 200 kids living there and only 2 people to really care for us. So we were paired up with an adult, and when I grew up, I was paired up with a little kid or maybe 2 sometimes to take care of. So we sort of, in a way, grew ourselves up. And it was tough. I mean, there were some good times and there were some really bad times that because it's impossible for two caregivers to care for and give the necessities of, what kids need for so many kids at one time. So I remember not having food for about 2 weeks. And so I became a hunter when I was really young. And to try to escape, I did things like go to the woods and just stay out there and dream and try to just hoping for a better life, even though I didn't know anything outside the barbed wire fence. And I also dug up a cave, which is on my video there that you saw at the E-Woman Network, where I dug a cave that was about 3 meters in and then 2 meters to the right. I think a meter is 3.5 feet or something. I'm not sure. But I did that to sort of escape, and it was my secret hiding place, a place that I could go in and meditate. And even at that age, I was visualizing and meditating because all I had was hope for something better. And I tried to not be in a place where I would stay in the suffering that I saw and experienced, but more of in the hope of, I know that even though I don't see anything outside these barbed wire fence, I know that there's possibility for something better and to come out of this. So that's where I come from.
Yeah. Maggie, it's so incredible to grow up in the circumstances that you did and to be able to, lean into hope and to create an environment where you could visualize and see a better life for yourself. Is that something that you learned from someone, or you witnessed anyone else doing that? Where do you think that drive came from within you to actually make some of those shifts, even though your circumstances and your environment weren't supporting you in that?
That's a really good question, because it's interesting that when I came to America and I started manifesting a lot of things in my life, I realized that I started reading these things in books and I was doing these things. And I really believe that we all have an innate power that we really don't understand, but it's available if you but just quiet your mind and meditate. Or just being hopeful. And I remember doing even vision boards where I would put little pictures of things that I wanted to become when I grew up. I remember visualizing myself as a really successful woman with a suit and heels behind this mahogany desk when I was a little kid, and long hair, And everything came true except for I have short hair. But I don't know. I mean, I think that it's all about choice too, because there's a lot of people that I grew up with that ended up either dead in cartels or in prisons or in prostitution in many different other ways. But there's others that came successful, and I think it comes to choice, but it also has to do with focus on, if I would have focused on life's over for me and there's no way out, then I don't know where I would be today. But my focus was in more of hope and, wow, what if I could be like Michael Jordan, because I became a basketball player.
Yeah.
What if I could, be this hunter that can feed myself and maybe feed other kids that are needing to eat in the orphanage? What if I could be a superhero? I mean, those things were always on my mind to try to figure out, to feel better. The moment I escaped to the woods or was in my cave, I was free. That for me, there was no suffering. I really believe that suffering is something that we but give ourselves in the mind. Right. Even if you're in a circumstance where it's very stressful and very suffer driven.
Right.
So there's a lot of people like here in America that I've known that come from the projects, like the African American population, mm-hmm. where they are there and they think that that's the only way of life, and they think that there's no other way, so they stay there, they gangbang, they do drugs, they do all these things. But if you're curious to know, to think, what if I could just go beyond those limits? What would I find? How could my life change if I'm just curious to see and to really put myself in a place where maybe there's a change, and that's where the hope came from for me.
Right. I really love that, because regardless of whether, people were in Mexico or here in America, there's circumstances. So many people look at what's physically in front of them now and, don't really think to look at. And I love you asking the questions like the what if and what that can happen. I remember when I was working, patrol as a police officer, and I would work in some of those neighborhoods, and I would talk to some of the kids and really start having conversations with them, like, what if you didn't live here, and what would you want to do, and what would that look like? And some of the kids would lean in and be part of that conversation, and some of them just couldn't see it at all. And so, it's just so good to have conversations like this where we start, looking at the possibility, and it doesn't matter where you're coming from. It's about that mindset. And I love how you talk about choice and having that happen. So you mentioned about Michael Jordan and about basketball. And I know that basketball is something that, you had a passion around, and that's actually what got you out of the country. Talk a little bit about how you started playing basketball, how that became a passion, and how it actually became your ticket out of the orphanage.
Yes. Before we go there, I want to share something with you.
Please.
I have here something that I can't travel with, but if I speak locally, I bring. This is my original knife that I used to hunt with. And this is a knife that I used to carve my cave with. And I still have it. Actually, it got taken away because one of my caregivers saw that I killed an animal, and I was punished for it. But he gave it to me right before he passed, gave it back to me. But the way that I came across basketball, I was always looking for ways to, how can I get out? How can I, do something that gives me an edge or power to kind of help me move out of this place where I am, because I had no idea where my life was going to go. When I was in junior high, it was the first time I left the orphanage, because the orphanage was about 45 minutes from the city. We were literally in the mountains. And so when I was in junior high, I remember passing my principal's office, and it was just like a Mexican little room with a black and white TV that was this long. And I remember watching Michael Jordan play, and I didn't know who he was at the time. And I asked him if I could just sit there and watch while I was in recess or not in class. And he said, yes. So I started watching his moves, and I started just, imitating his moves and playing. And I became so good that I got, into the basketball team there. And I remember practicing every day at the orphanage for 4 hours, sometimes a little bit more. And we had we had a dirt court, and I made a hoop with like barbed wire at that time, the barbed wire. And there was a kid, his name was Pancho, and he was found in a dumpster and picked up because he had spinal bifida, so he couldn't walk. So he was one of the kids that I had for a couple of weeks to take care of, so I had to carry him everywhere in my back. And I said, Pancho, what if we play a game? I'm going to cover my eyes and you just tell me stop and turn whenever I get close to the edge, and because I could fall over, and just tell me stop and turn, and I'll pretend like I'm dribbling up past all these people. And he said, yeah, sure. So that's how I learned how to play basketball really well without being able to see, but I would visualize multitude of people coming at me, trying to take the ball from me. And I was so good that he forgot to tell me stop and turn that I got cut my head on the pole, and I had to get stitches. But oh, wow. I was so good with skills that in high school, we won the national championships, and by a lot. And it was interesting because all the women that we played against, it was very, I was playing like an evolved boy basketball player, and so there happened to be the main guy for the Mexican national team watching us play, and he asked me to come up and play for the Mexican national team when I graduated high school. But what happened is I went to Mexico City and I met with them, and they were very excited, and they said, yes, we're going to call you back, just stand still. And we waited about 3 months, and during those 3 months, we were kind of losing hope. My father was losing hope, and one day he introduced American football, the American football, and we started to play. And one of my brothers threw a really long pass, and I was running, and I caught it in the air and fell on my shoulder, and I broke my collarbone. And I went to my caregiver, who was a doctor, and the first thing he told me, he was a doctor, he said, your dreams are over. And what happens when you hear from a doctor, hey, you have cancer, you have 2 weeks to live? I mean, do you believe them? Do you really believe them? Or do you have hope that you can live longer? And so for me, it was like, nope. I was very, like, my wrist went like this on my sides. And I said, nope, I don't know how. But I feel like there's something better, because I don't know how. I feel like this is happening for a reason. Maybe Mexico City is not the place to be. And it wasn't, because I got really sick because of the smog and the noise and everything when I went there.
Right. So this is so important to talk about, because, the thing about, people have heard diagnosis from doctors or experts or people, we talk about things that disempower you. And you've talked about when people tell you, you can't do something. And it's such a disservice to, tell people, especially, young people, that they can't do something, when we know that when we have possibility and we have hope that we can overcome anything. I have a dear friend of mine that is a really big advocate about being your own doctor, right? About not listening to those diagnoses, that our body can heal anything, right? And our vision can have the vision that we can do anything. And so I applaud you for just, really keep going past all of the things that were coming up as these roadblocks in your way because a lot of people could look at your circumstances saying, oh, you're from, an orphanage, or you're poor, or you're in Mexico, or just all of these different circumstances. Any one of them could have kept you back. And so I smile that you're talking about basketball, because my grandson, who is in middle school, his dream is to play for the NBA, and he plays every single day, and he has this dream. And I'm going to share this with him, because anytime you can see something inspiring where people are going for their dreams, it helps fuel them to move forward with that. And so you hung on to this dream that allowed you then to actually leave the country and play in college. And that's where you had gotten your degree. So talk a little bit how it transitioned from you having that injury to then playing in college.
So I got injured, and then 3 days later, the Mexican national team called.
Of course.
And I couldn't go. And that's when it really hit me. But it was like 4 months later, we got invited. My caregivers took a bus with all my 68 siblings and toured the United States to get support for the orphanage. And we got invited to a picnic in West Virginia. And I remember arriving at the picnic, and there was a lot of people. It was outside of a Catholic church, and they had a basketball court, those outdoor ones with asphalt and old rims and stuff. So as soon as we saw that, my brothers and I went out and started to play. And there happened to be the coach of the University of Charleston, and she saw me play, and she went to my caregiver and asked him, I want her to play for me in a scholarship. I asked my age and everything. Now, if I would have taken his advice of my dreams or my dreams are over, I would have probably not played that day, and I wouldn't be speaking to you today. I wouldn't be here. And so I think that really was the next step, the freedom, the opportunity that I get in this country. I don't know that I would have been able to be or get close in Mexico, being that it's a third world country and it's difficult.
Right, definitely. Well, and again, this is part of why we're really, taking each part of your journey, because, for your entrepreneurs or, people who are in business, a lot of times we see someone's success and we don't see their journey and how they got there and how certain things could have discouraged you or got you off your path. And, you kept moving forward through some of these things. And so it's important to see that this is part of, the hero's journey, or, being successful is there are setbacks and things that are happening. So talk a little bit about, here you've, made it to America, you're playing basketball, you got your college degree, which is a huge accomplishment in that, but then you weren't able to find work, after that. And you actually became homeless for a while. Tell us a little bit about how that setback, how that affected you, and how that moved you forward into the next step for you.
So when I was in college, I ended up playing 3 sports to pay for my schooling and scholarships: basketball, soccer, and a rowing crew. And I also had a part-time job, but cutting trees and grass in the summer. And what happened is when I graduated, it was right around, the winter time, and my degree was in interior design. And back then in West Virginia, there was only 2 or 3 firms, I think, with interior design. And I reached out to them, and I couldn't get a job. I mean, it was just saturated with people already trying to get in. And so I didn't know what to do. I started living out of my little white station wagon. I called it the Maggie Waggy. and I remember sleeping in parking lots and getting called by the police, and I had to move and just here and there, just trying to move. And I remember setting my car on my heat on high so that it would be warm enough, and then turning it off. And then when I got really cold, I would wake up and turn it on again. And that's how I did for a couple months. And then my car blew up. I was going up a hill, and the hood blew up, and I didn't know anything about taking care of a car back then. So I literally just picked up my bags and started walking and left the car there. And that's what I would do in Mexico, but I didn't know anything about tow trucks or anything. So I ended up living mostly in the woods, not on the street because I didn't want to be seen so much, but more in the woods because that's how I grew up. And to me, it was not. Somebody told me when they found me at a grocery store, because I was getting paid by a supermarket, they were like, "Oh my gosh, look where you are now. And you used to be homeless." And I'm like, "Wait, I used to be homeless?" And this is the lady that found me on the street, that got me out of the street and gave me a place to stay. But I couldn't even place that because that's how I grew up, in the woods, Right. So right after coming out of homelessness, it was several weeks, and I got entered into a salsa contest for Fresh Pico de Gallo salsa contest. And the reason why is because when I was in college, I used to make this pico de gallo salsa, and all my friends loved it so much they would tell my teachers, and my teachers had me bring it to class. So it was like a known thing that they knew me for. So they entered me into the salsa contest, and I won by unanimous vote. I think I beat 15 people. And it's because back then, all the salsas they were making were cooked salsas, like a Tostitos type salsa, jarred salsa. And
Right.
this was fresh. So I beat everybody. And then I thought, okay, I had an aha moment. I said, maybe this is something. And I kind of sort of felt like maybe it wouldn't be received well because it wasn't known. But I knew I had something and I was going to push through, even if I got people tell me to quit, which happened a lot by friends. It happened by supermarkets. It happened by manufacturers, local manufacturers, because I was asking them how to get into supermarkets. But that's really when my life really took off with
Right.
my business.
Right. Well, and what's interesting is I'm sure that, when you were growing up, it didn't pop in your head like, I'm going to go into the salsa business, right? So it's one of those where it's like an opportunity presented itself and you leaned into it and you started really moving with that. You had someone that lent you some money to really have you take off with this. What do you think made your salsa different, that yours became? I mean, when you ended up selling your business to Campbell's, this is like multi-million dollars that you received for this salsa recipe that was distributed to all kinds of places, from Wal-Mart to Whole Foods to Sam's Club. I mean, it is a very big known name. What do
Yes.
you attribute your salsa having that kind of success?
I think it was the fresh aspect of it, because the way that it was marketed, it was all natural, not organic, because I couldn't afford organic ingredients back then, and they were more expensive. But it didn't have anything other than fresh tomatoes, jalapenos, onion, cilantro, garlic, and then it had the lime to put the acidity in it, and then the the vinegar. Even the FDA, the Department of Agriculture, told me that I wouldn't make it, that I only had 10 days, that I should cook the salsa. And years later, we were on a fair and they found me. They're like, remember when we told you to change it? As we're glad you didn't. But I sort of felt like there's this technology that's always evolving. And I found technology without putting any additives or ingredients to increase the shelf life to 25 days and then to 60 days, using a $1 million machine that's called HPP, hydrostatic high pressure processing, which compresses the product to pressures below sea level, killing all microorganisms. That makes it last that long without anything. So that was really the big thing for me. But it was quite a challenge to begin with. But I knew that it was something special, because the moment that somebody tried it, they were, oh my gosh, where can we buy this? And it was interesting because I spent $0 on marketing. It was all word of mouth, because I knew I had something. Even if people told me that I wasn't going to make it, that I should quit doing that and get a job, because literally it was hard at the beginning. Yeah. I just knew people are loving it and they're just talking about it. They would walk into supermarkets and tell me, you should get this lady in, get her products. And they would call me and tell me, who are you? These people are calling me. So then I would speak to the buyers. But it was quite an amazing journey. And it literally started with 90 supermarkets telling me no, that they didn't want my products because they didn't know what it was. And I did not have anything to show for. And it was hard because also with money, because other than the $800 that somebody gave me to start it out, it was like bankers didn't want to loan me money because I had nothing to show for either. And right. Years later, they were begging me to get a loan because now they were seeing my bank account.
Right.
But
yeah. I was just saying, this really shows your perseverance, right? And that you trusting yourself more than other people and their words, because so many times we look outside of ourselves for that validation or saying whether or not it's okay. But with you really trusting yourself, and this is really what we want the listeners to really, what is their visions? Like, what is it that you really want to do? And maybe someone's already told you no, that you can't do it, but for you to really stick with it. I mean, what would you say, what's like one piece of advice would you be able to give our listeners that when it feels really tough and you're going for your dream and people are maybe even telling you not to do it, how do you feel like, what can you share with them to help them get through those tough times?
Well, for me you can have a really great product and you can have a product that you think it's really great, but it really sucks. So for me, and I've encountered many business people like that. For me, I took the initiative to do a pros and cons list of how it wouldn't work and how it would work. And then with that, I would do like groups, like test groups on the product. Mm-hmm. And so as long as I had more pros than cons, whether it was going to make it successful, then I went for it. And it was that actually fueled the belief in the power that I had something really great that a lot of people were denying, but didn't know about it yet because they hadn't tried it. Yeah. So it was kind of like the proof. I had to get the proof, because that I can believe all day long that I'm going to make it, but where's the research behind it? Where's the proof that, yes, this is great because all these people have tried it and they want it so badly, you know, and that's really what sparks the fire, the inspiration, the motivation that gives you that push to say, I have something great. I'm just going to keep doing it no matter how many people tell me no.
Right. Oh, wow. This is so great. You know, I mean, because now you've got some support, right? It's not, you know, there's always going to be naysayers. You know, you're doing your own proof, you know, which leads me to ask, you know, how would you describe happiness?
Well, happiness is different for every single person because we're so uniquely geared towards our own needs, our own basic human needs. And you have to really ask the question, you know, what makes me happy? What makes me really, really happy? The biggest question for me is to ask myself, why am I here right now? Why was I born? Why am I here on this earth right now? And I think that when you figure out your why, you really put meaning and purpose in your life and you start living with intention. And knowing your why for me sets the fire for everything that I do. Every time I wake up every morning, I know that answer. And then I can continue to work towards that. Because our purpose really is to feel fulfilled, to be happy while we're here. And when you are fulfilled and you're happy, you're answering that question. And that's very powerful to me. So whether it is money or business success or family or friendships, connection, love, whatever it is that is your why, if you focus on that and that's what you go for, you'd be surprised how fulfilled your life turns out to be.
Right. And how would you answer that question for yourself today?
Well, my why, see, with salsa, I always knew that it was a stepping stone for something bigger. Yeah. Because if, like you said earlier, if you would have told me 20 years ago that I'd be making salsa for a living, I'd be like, no way, no, what? So I really believed, even since I started the business, that salsa was just a stepping stone. And I didn't know what or how, what was the next thing. But I always understood that there was greater purpose for me. And my why is to really inspire people and help them transform their lives and become better people. And I can speak with my story because it's brought me so far. And I do it through motivational speaking across this country and other countries. And also a mission, a new movement that I created based on right after I sold my company. I went back to Mexico and helped rescue the 31 orphan children from a drug cartel that were being trafficked. And that gave birth to a movement that I call True Life Hero. And do you want me to talk about it right now?
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, I think people who are driving their car and listening to this, they're like, what? You know, so first of all, how did you go about rescuing these children? You know, and then, yes, I definitely want to get into True Hero.
So I was in Michigan and I got a call. My brother, who was still running the orphanage, said that 50 people were going to show up, that he was told that they were going to take over. And also there was a cartel fight going on in that area. Michoacan is very, very big into those sort of things, especially when there's change of power. And we actually ended up rescuing little boys and girls 2 and 4 years old that were sexually abused really badly and taken, but we were able to take them back. And so when I arrived at the orphanage, I literally put all of the kids into one room. It was probably like a 10 by 20. And I had a 38 special handgun. Mm-hmm. And my brother had a shotgun hechiza, like handmade shotgun that we made. It was not a 20 gauge, but a 20 gauge, I'm sorry, not a 12 gauge, 20 gauge. And so we stayed outside and slept outside in the concrete floor. And I ended up tying up a dog to my waist because I noticed she was caged up in chicken wire. Mm-hmm. And she barked at anything that moved. So I thought that I was so tired that if she would see anything, she would jerk me and move me and wake me up. And eventually I went to town and spoke to the comandante of the federales, the Mexican police, and also the military, because they were all around. And I asked if they could come in and protect, and they said they couldn't because they were in government business, because they were also fighting cartels. Mm-hmm. And they ended up showing up later on, which I was so grateful. I have that video that you saw at the Union, all that is documented there, but I would wake up at 3 a.m, make them coffee at 4 a.m. We provide them a place to stay, made them coffee, cookies, and kept them very happy because I wanted them to come back. So they would come back with their sirens on and patrol the area, and just everything was safe. And so there was an incident where some kids were taken and we couldn't do anything about it. And we flew in I installed a really high capacity phone because if I had my cell phone, I had to climb a tree to get service.
Yeah.
So we ended up having the military come in and with their snipers and catch the people. And we actually have photo and video of that, but we're not allowed to share that because they asked us not to, because it's sensitive. Sure. But after that happened and they had come in because of what they saw, then I was free to come back and felt so much better about what we had established there and the safety of those kids. Right.
Well, thank you for just, going back to your roots and, helping these children who I'm sure were waiting for some hope as well, and to know that there are people that care and to make that happen. Let us know, where are things now with True Life Hero, and how can people find out about it? Tell us a little bit about what it is about, and how people can help.
So True Life Hero, it's a website that I've created. I just literally started it. It's truelifehero.com. And I had an epiphany. I was in meditation a couple months ago, maybe a month ago or so. And it hit me because there's hundreds and hundreds of organizations that are fighting human trafficking or child trafficking, sex trafficking. Mm-hmm. Hundreds here, Mexico, everywhere. But nobody's looking at the other side. And my epiphany was, just give you an example. If you go to the doctor and you're sick, the doctor will give you a pill if you have a cough. He will treat the symptoms, but not the cause.
Right.
And then similarly, I was thinking, when I had my salsa business, 95% of my product was tomatoes. Mm-hmm. And when we had that great salmonella outbreak, my 40-pound case of tomatoes went from $3 to $48 a case.
Wow.
So when there's no supply, the demand goes up, the prices go up. So what's happening when we're taking all these kids away? What's happening to the prices and the demand?
Going up.
And you have to understand that I wanted to kill these people that hurt children. I wanted to kill them so badly. But then I realized that I really didn't know their stories. And from talking to people who are psychologists, world-renowned, that I've found that almost 100% of the people that hurt children have been hurt also.
Right.
But nobody's been able to help them, and they didn't know their stories. So I became so filled with this compassion and love towards the people that hurt children that it completely changed my perspective. And then I asked myself, why is nobody speaking about them? Why is nobody reaching out to them? Something happens when you are a child and somebody does that to you. it's like they've taken a piece of your soul, and they've taken something from you, and these people don't know how to get it back, and they become something that they just do and do and do, and they don't know how to fix. It's a psychological thing.
Right.
What if we were able to reach these people, and what if we were able to help them heal? And the purpose of True Life Hero is not that I have an answer, because I don't. Because trafficking and sex trafficking is very, very wide range in many different ways it's done. And so for me, it's more of a collaboration of thought, and it's open to anybody. Even if somebody hurts somebody, it's open to anybody, because I believe that with collaboration and talking about it, and maybe talking about possible solutions, we could solve a generational issue rather than just solving the wound at the surface. So that's the point of True Life Hero, and how it's really impacted my life, and the deep profoundness of how we can go to the roots and actually solve, because it's bigger than what we think. It's a socioeconomic, it's a cultural, it's a so many things issue.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. Well, I know that, this is such a tough subject for people, especially when it comes to children, because no one wants, children to be harmed in any way. I would see this a lot in the police department where, kids who are victims in situations, and, it's a natural tendency to want to hate the perpetrator. And believe me, I know what that's like, to feel like I just want somebody dead and gone. Yes. And yes. They won't hurt another child type thing. And so we get this collective outrage that people have. So I want to just give you some praise for just be willing to have the conversation. We're not saying that, we're necessarily even forgiving some of these things, right? Maybe there's forgiveness, but, we don't forget, like whatever that is for people in that conversation. We have to look at what are some bigger things, what are the systemic things that are happening, so that we can look at it from this discussion is really about that. It's about having the conversation around what is possible, right? So that we can not have this, to break this cycle of violence and things that are happening with this. And I love how you're in the inquiry, like just from the very beginning of your life, like, well, what if, right? What if there was something that could be done that people wouldn't grow up wanting to hurt children? Like what could happen around that? So I love that you've created this website for people to be part of the conversation. I know it's going to trigger all kinds of things, from people being angry to looking at possibility to just all of it, right? And I think that being part of this conversation of just having the conversation, I commend your bravery of being able to look at things that most people aren't willing to look at, which is a really, really challenging thing. So, I know people are going to want to stay in contact with you, and you want to share a little bit about that. And do you have anything more that you want to add as far as people being part of the conversation?
Well, I just wanted to say that you'd be surprised of how much healing can come out of this. I spoke at a international convention in Kansas about 2 months ago, and I spoke about this, and there was men and women that came up to me after my talk, and they said, "You literally hit me like a ton of bricks. Now I was abused, I was raped, and now I know how to forgive him or her." And it's forgiveness. I think it's a whole round thing. It's like it's an awareness and a realization that people suffer. People do things because of something that happened to them, or the way they grew up, or because of certain suffering that happened to their lives. So it's a well-round thing. That it's a healing thing that could really happen there. But people can reach me at Magie at MagieCook.com, Magie with one G at MagieCook.com, or you can go to TrueLifeHero.com. And I also have a website. It's called MagieCook.com, Magie with one G, Magie.
Good. Perfect. Well, and we'll put all of these in the show notes. And, one thing on when it comes to forgiveness is that when we're in a place of forgiveness, it's really about being able to forgive ourselves, from any of like the guilt and shame, and being able to not have your life stop at these moments, and to be able to get beyond that so that you can see bigger pictures and be able to have that. So it's really about shifting that energy for people that have been victims as well as been abusers. So I think it's important to really talk in and around that. So on a lighter note, one of the things that I do like asking my guests is that, because environments really do affect us. I mean, I'm really noticing the trees behind you and what we create in our space are so important. And the different experiences that we have in our home, it's a different feeling in our bedroom versus our kitchen versus our office. What is your favorite room in your home and why?
Yeah, that's a good question. I honestly love my backyard, and I'll be out there. I have a 300-year-old tree that's really, really big. I could say I love my office because I can look out the window a lot. But I think that really every room is sacred. Even inviting people over, like my husband asked me a week ago if we could invite all his people from work to our home. And I said, this is our sacred space. That's, we have to be careful because I want to keep our treasure for ourselves, and really, we'll have family and everything here, but it's really sacred to me. So every room is sacred. But I do spend most of my time in my office, and I love the view of my tree because here's where I get things done for the future. This room is the manifestator of the creation of the future. So this is probably, this in the backyard, probably my favorite room.
Perfect. I love it so much. Well, I just want to thank you, Maggie, for your time and your perseverance and sharing your story, and just the hope that you bring to people, and that you're still on the path of, making shifts and changes in the world and asking the question about what's possible.
Yes.
So thank you so much for that.
You're very welcome.
Oh, perfect. So for our listeners, we're having this, discussion around, standing in your power. Like, what are you here to do? Are you asking yourself some of these questions? I also will have in the show notes about a free gift from myself as well of resetyourpowergift.com about what are some of the ways you can stand in your power and to utilize some of these tools. And we want you to be part of the conversation. We know that your time is the most valuable resource. And so we want to thank you for spending this time here with us. Please, whether you are watching this or, you're listening to this on the replay, please put in some of the comments. What are some of your questions, and tag both, Maggie and myself, because we really want to get the word out around how you can make shifts and changes in the world. And it starts with you. And we're here as a resource for you. And we just want to thank you